you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another episode of All About Mechanics. Now the last one was about the dungeon Banished Cells 1, and this one is going to be about Fungal Grotto 1. Now what I'm going to be doing is showing you all the mechanics of the dungeons and the bosses and how you should be able to achieve a completion of the dungeon having a full understanding of how everything works. I'm going to be using the same setup as I used before, and I'll do the same for every dungeon as well, with a very standard setup of a stamina DPS, a magicka DPS, a tank and a healer. You can use other stuff if you prefer, but this is a very safe composition, given good single target, good AoE, good heals, and good tanking as well, all at the same time, rather than kind of going too squish and trying to try too hard on stuff that you don't necessarily need to. And I'll go through all the details of the dungeons, and then of course as part of the series, and as it progresses, you'll see harder content come in. I'll do all the tier 1 stuff first, then tier 2, and so on and so forth, and then I'll gradually get to the DLCs. But first of all, here's Fungal Grotto 1, and hopefully this gives you a little bit more help towards getting that place completed. So straight in at the deep end, as soon as you go in, you're greeted by a small group of enemies. Now, a couple of them are melee, a couple of them are ranged. Just make sure, like before in Banished Cells, you keep the ranged ones interrupted and stay out of the AoEs on the ground while burn them down. The tank should be able to position everything nice and central so that you don't have any additional problems. The next pull is pretty much the same. There's not too many enemies, but you can get overwhelmed with them if you're not careful with the ranged guys. So you want your tank to be able to pull in those ranged ones while you kind of focus on the middle area for damage. You can see I'm kind of staying close to the center as much as possible while the tank positions everything where we need it. Stay out of the AoEs, and if you do see the ranged guys, particularly the archers, doing anything stupid, normally a cone on the floor, that means you can interrupt it and you need to stop them. That guy there's doing it, but he's dead anyway. But you can see how the tank is positioning everything quite central. Now if you are a DPS and you're a bit YOLO, this is where you'll die, so be very careful. Don't run ahead of the tank, let them go ahead of you. They're tanky for a reason, they're chunky for a reason. Don't die to stupid stuff. This boss is very simple, same again with the ads. You get quite a few to start with, a couple ranged, a couple melees, but the main person to obviously focus on is the boss. Now the ads will die mostly to area of effect damage as long as they're positioned correctly, but just be careful not to get caught short by their damage, because sometimes one or two might not be taunted and you'll get caught out. Just pay attention. But mostly overall the tank can just keep blocks up as and when needed to on this boss. He doesn't have any really nasty mechanics. Any heavy attacks that he generally throws out can be normally blocked by the tank anyway. So as long as the tank keeps the taunts up and keeps everything in the middle, you as a DPS or a healer should be just fine. Remember, as per usual, stay out of the stupid stuff on the ground. Next room is a couple of ads, not too stressful. A lot less than the first room, in fact, so same applies. Keep everything in the middle if you can, and as a DPS, just keep an eye on anything that might be targeting you, especially the ranged guys on the outside. If you see a healer healing, interrupt it. If you see an archer trying to throw something from distance, interrupt it again. As you can see, most of us aren't actually taking any damage because of the way everyone's positioned. The next room, again, like I said with YOLOing, please do not YOLO in this room. It is infested with ads, it's really tricky, and your tank and your healers have to really be on the ball. Of course, I'll let Looney go ahead of me here so we can get the first couple taunts in, but you'll see that some of the ranged guys will start firing at me or in my direction. So you've got to be really careful. Make sure that you keep a block or a shield or something to that effect up if you need to. In the meantime, let the tank position everything dead central as before. You can see these guys at the back. They haven't actually been aggroed this time, so we're lucky. But he heals, you can interrupt that with a bash. It's quite a simple room if you're focused as a group, but if you go in too quickly and you YOLO it, you are going to die. This boss is relatively simple. The two ads on the side, left and right, get those down as quick as possible because they can throw out some nasty damage. You don't want to be interrupted by having your mechanics interrupted, by having those give you too much stress. So get those down quickly. In the meantime, keep the boss as central as possible. Now he will put some nasty effects on one or two of the DPS occasionally in the form of a beam that spreads out into a bomb, as you just saw that affected the tank instead this time. When that happens, just stand out of the AoE, don't get caught by it. So he'll throw an effect on me in a moment. Nope, throw it onto Christina. You can see that she's affected by it. She just moves out of the way and comes back in again. That can be done in two ways. One, move out of the group, or two, the group moves away from you. It's entirely up to you. Apart from that, most of the damage is generally done to the tank, so as long as the tank blocks the heavy attacks, you should be absolutely fine. Again, the heavy attack will generally knock down the tank. It won't normally kill it unless you're under 30k health, especially on vet, of course. So don't panic too much if you do miss the heavy, but try and pay attention to it for future bosses, because he's a very simple one and those base mechanics do need to be followed. They don't have a lot of health though, the first couple bosses, so you can normally burn through them a little bit. Now of course all these goblins, because they're now worshipping you, are not on you anymore. So you can see that none of these are actually aggressive, because you killed their leader. But you do have to fight these instead. These nice bug looking enemies, which you can pronounce it however you want. I've done it wrong a few times, the Lore Master will tell me off. These ones are a little bit tougher than usual in comparison to the other stuff you've been up against. But again, if the tank just taunts them and turns them away from the group, make sure you as a DPS don't dance around in circles, just stand behind them, you should be fine. Lots of mud crabs, lots of AoE on the ground. If they are all after you at once, let the tank kind of claw them up if they can, and just keep a block up for a couple of seconds so they don't do too much damage. Mud crabs are fine, but in mass numbers they can melt you really, really quick, so take advantage of that block button and let the tank kind of grab hold of as much as he can. Again, same here, AoE's on the ground, burn them down as quick as possible, and if you do get attacked by them, just keep a block up, just until you're recovered. The Dreugh or the Dreugh, whichever you want to call them, those guys, don't stand in front of them. Tank's fine, stand in front of him, but as a DPS, he does do a nasty, fast attacking move that can kind of wean you down quite quickly. Now this boss in front, on the other side of the bridge in fact, he has a conal effect that you obviously need to stay out of, and then he has a rapid attack, like 1, 2, 3 thought in your face, really, really quick. So you need to make sure that you don't get caught by that. Obviously if the tank's got it, he can block it. If you've got it, for any reason, maybe the tank hasn't taunted it, or the tank's dead, or something went wrong, just make sure you block. As a DPS, as long as you're full health and receiving small amounts of heals, you can actually block this mechanic. So you should be just fine. But again, the tank should be turning it away from the group, along with the adds, so you can all kind of burn it down together without too much stress and too much stuff hitting you at once. As you can see, we had a DC here, but that happens. So DC fixed, and we're going to run across the bridge at this boss. There's 3 adds on the left, which you don't actually have to regress straight away, but you can bring them in if you want, if you're confident. But most of all, get down the 2 green adds and focus the boss afterwards, unless you've got lots of AoE, in which case you can hit them all at the same time. It's that lightning attack that will pull in whoever he's aggroing. That can sometimes be the DPS as well, not just the tank. If it does happen, just throw a quick block and then get out of the way. And look, you can see this conal effect there, which you can avoid, and then the rapid strikes that he does, which will be on a tank in a moment, which you can block. You can block his basic ones as well. There you go, smack, 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 smack. It does hurt quite a lot, but if you block it, you'll be absolutely fine. Just don't stand in stupid. If you're a DPS, you should always be behind the boss anyway on this particular fight. And then as you can see, our tank got quite confident, so I pulled in the other stuff as well. They don't hit anywhere near as hard, but they do have very similar mechanics, so you do have to be careful. Stay out of his face, you'll be fine. If he spins on you, again, I've said this in the previous tutorial, do not run away. If you run away as a DPS, you just made the tank's job so much harder, because he's now got to sprint and waste stamina catching up with you. If it's on you, just block. Stay up stupid and block. Couple guys here, same as before. These are actually quite weak in comparison to the last ones, so they go down quickly. Mud crabs, you already know how to deal with those. AoE's on the ground, block if they're on you. Let the healer and tank kind of keep you up, although they do die quite quickly. This mud crab is very, very simple. It's just like all the little adds we just had, so you get lots of them. But then the main boss itself just does a heavy attack every so often. He's really not that tough. But through certain increments of the fight, every so often, he will launch out some more mud crabs. So just keep your dots on the ground, and they will die to that. And of course, if you have a Dragon Knight tank, it's really helpful if they throw out some claws just to keep them still. As you can see, it's not a very long fight at all. The boss really doesn't do a lot in comparison to others. There's not much in terms of mechanics. He just kind of hits the tank and that's it. Even as a DPS, you can block him all day long. So don't panic. If it's on you, just block and wait for him to be aggroed again. Now this boss is very, very simple, but it can go horribly wrong. First of all, the hard mode button is on the left here, this little scroll. So you press this really quick, activate hard mode, he'll have more health and he can one-shot you. There's only one major thing that will one-shot you, and it's the AoE from underneath his feet. He has a rapid strike ability, just like the other one that we fought a little while ago on the other side of the bridge. But you basically need to try and keep him as still as possible. So you fight him from behind. You always hit him from behind, don't hit him from the front because you'll get caught in his his slaps. You see those on the tank right there? The really quick strikes, and then a heavy. The tank needs to block those. Everything else you're fine. That, however, that big burst mechanic underneath his feet, that's what you need to get out of. If you're a DPS, don't stand there and try and finish off an ability. Don't try and be too smart. Don't try and shield and block. Just get out of it. That's the one shot. The rest of it is all in the tank. So the heavy attack there, the rapids, tank can block that, and in between, get some stamina back. So he's not even hitting the tank now, just releasing mud crabs, which we've already managed. Big AoE, get out. Do not stay in there, you will die. Don't care how clever you think you are, you will die. Again, lots of hits on the tank. Heavy, he blocks, didn't block that time. But it's not going to kill the tank, just make sure you can block if you can. This part now coming up will kill you. Like I've said twice already, big AoE from his feet, get out. Don't risk it. Perfect. Get back in again. Most things are like that in this game as far as mechanics are concerned. With a big AoE, normally get out, then get back in. It's very, very simple. From Looney's perspective, he's seeing some rapid strikes that he blocks, and then a heavy, and then the rest of it he's free to just hit the boss. And that's it. Hard mode complete. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring. If you do have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. I do generally answer all the questions I get unless I miss a couple, in which case if I do, I apologize. I'll try and keep up with them as much as I can. First of all, if you're not subscribing, please do hit that button, it is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support the channel outside of YouTube, there are some links in the description for Patreon, for Facebook, for Twitter, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com. Depending on how this is received as a series, I may end up putting this on the website as a guide section, but that's kind of up to you guys. If you want to see that sort of thing, let me know. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.